Right, guys, we're joined by the one and only Mr. Crazy Steve. First of all, Steve, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the WrestleSlam podcast and the Sports Matters platforms. How's things your side of the pond today?
Very well. Things are very well. Thank you for having me. My pleasure. Absolutely. Yeah. So things are good. Yeah.
Definitely. No, it's nonstop for you, Steve. You're constant, 24/7, always on a go. How's things via Impact at this moment in time? Look, we're happy enough to see you there. It's a great organization. We love you there. Obviously, we loved all the stuff prior with Rosemary and Decay. So, like, what's it like being at Impact right now? It's a great time to be alive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the question's pretty appropriate considering we for the most part have gotten over the pandemic, right? So it never fails to amaze me where we'll be on the road, we'll be somewhere like recently we were just in Vegas. Actually, I feel like this conversation happened on the last trip to Vegas between myself, Eric Young, and someone else, and we were saying like it's so great to see where we're at right now. Whereas in 2020 and 2021, we were at Skyway wrestling in front of nobody, absolutely nobody. And we are, and like to put that in perspective, we and wrestling as a whole, never in the history of professional wrestling has there been a time where that has been the case. And so, and I mean, wrestling as a whole, everybody who not just Impact, but all promotions who participated during COVID, we are a part of a generation of people who like, that's never happened before and hopefully will never happen again. And so it's the scope of that is pretty mind blowing, I think. And to see us, be on the road as often as we are in all these different places is really cool, really, really cool. And that's putting it mildly.
Definitely. No, I'm glad you mentioned that because, look, obviously it was a very strange time for the wrestling fan, for the wrestler, for the organizations. But like, how did you cope with that? Some people seem to like the pandemic and the alone time and time to kind of reflect, and other people didn't like it. So personally, for you, Steve, how did you find it?
I was very fortunate in the sense of from a family perspective, my family remained and was for the most part very healthy throughout the entire pandemic. So from that perspective, I'm again very fortunate. And outside of that, I missed, but I'm very comfortable with being by myself, and so I easily fell into that groove, I guess. But again, a lot of that had to do with the fact that my family was safe and they were healthy throughout it. I couldn't imagine if you were somebody who had to struggle with that. The time alone would be agonizing. So for me, again, I fell into it no problem, but I was never without the thought of like, okay, I'm lucky in this sense because there's other people who might not be going through the same things that I'm fortunate enough to go through. So I got along with it just fine. I still had a gym to work out in, so that helped a big time for me from a physical standpoint, but mostly a mental standpoint helped as far as that's concerned. And then other than that, I've got 4 awesome dogs, and I enjoyed spending time with them and my family as well. So it was okay.
That's good. Now, you mentioned Eric Young a couple of minutes ago. Look, obviously he's a big role in your career. Obviously, having worked with you, from the early days. Like, what does Eric Young mean to you, first of all? Because look, he's iconic here in Ireland. We were lucky enough to have him over here. I think it was early in the year, but look, obviously he's a great guy. And what kind of fundamentals do you have in your career earlier on?
I don't have enough time on your podcast to answer what Eric Young means to me. He's the one who broke me into the business. He trained me. When I first got signed to Impact in 2014, I had nowhere to live. I was moving from the UK, and he just said, "You'll just live with me. We'll get you sorted for like a year. You get you sorted. You'll get an apartment." That was 5 years later. I ended up moving out. I lived so. I owe him everything. He's one of my best buddies. Yes, he trained me, but he's more than that. He's just an all around fantastic human being. And as far as a professional wrestler is concerned, he checks all the boxes. I mean, from everything you want to look at, from promos to how he looks, to how he performs, to how he acts, backstage when cameras aren't off. He's a professional in every sense of the word. So definitely an inspiration to me, not just in professional wrestling, but in how to carry yourself in life.
No, I respect that. And like we have to mention, obviously, look, it's very important, I think, for any wrestler in general to work the indie scene. Okay. So like you get very rare these days, but you might get the odd wrestler that might go straight into say Impact and he's fresh. How important is it to work the indie scene and seeing the jigs and the reels, the bullshit, the no bullshit? Because obviously it's a really, tough business to be in. So like, how did you find working the indies from day one? Obviously that was very important for your progress moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can do both. There's definitely cases of guys who, Heath, for example. Heath is a great example of what you just brought up, in the sense of, I started in 2003 and I busted my ass on the independents for 12 years before even getting a look at by Impact Wrestling. But Heath is somebody who he just started and then got picked up from WWE and was in WWE forever, and is only like now, as of like the past few years, experiencing the independents and experiencing different places. And to travel with him and just to be around him in general is entertaining. But as it pertains to the question, he always has like just these weird questions of like, man, is there going to be a bathroom in the building? So, yes, there'll be bathroom. Do we have to set up the rings? No, Heath, no, it'll be okay. The ring will already be set up. Like, just these questions that would come out of him are just hilarious to me. But he is a great example of somebody who, didn't go through the independents, but still made a career out of professional wrestling and is very successful at it. So it can be done. But I definitely, if I could go back, there's not a lot I would change. I have some of the best friends that I grew like that I would never have met if it wasn't for independent wrestling. I've had some of the best times in parking lots just because I'm surrounded by fantastic human beings, and stories that, stories on top of stories on top of stories, and all of that is thanks to professional wrestling, and it's thanks to independent wrestling in particular.
Yeah, no, it's huge, and I say it's pretty beneficial being on the indie scene, learning the jigs and the reels, from town to town, state to state. Obviously, it's a big thing moving forward. Like you're Canadian, so obviously, look, there's great heritage there when it comes to Canadian wrestling. What kind of guys did you worship growing up as a kid? Were you a wrestling fan as a kid, or was it just something you took to later on in life?
No, it was something from the moment I could see. My mom put me in front of professional wrestling. That's not an exaggeration. That's straight from her mouth. So I was always attracted to it like I said, from the moment I could see. And then I never once checked out. There was never a moment where, I was going through high school and I was like, wrestling isn't cool anymore. And then I got back in when it got popular. I was with it throughout the entire time. It's been a constant in my life, to the point now where sometimes I even question, like, am I even a fan, or am I just doing this because I've just been doing it for so long? I am a fan. That is the answer to this question. But I always loved professional wrestling. And as far as like who were my guys, so if I go from like an age perspective, so we're like 5 to whatever, 5 years old, I'm a Hulkamaniac. And then you have The Undertaker shows up, and I'm immediately attracted to a character like that. And then years go by and you have your, we're in the 90s now, so you get your Kanes, your Mankind's, Raven, all these darker characters. I was attracted to that, but I think that also kind of like, I was also in my teens. I'm a fan of horror movies at the time. I'm into like even the music I listen to is dark and creepy and weird and all that stuff. So just always been a fan of that kind of look or style, or been attracted to it for whatever reason. But always been a fan of professional wrestling. And then once I broke into professional wrestling, I was able to look at it through many different lenses, and it opened up a whole new world, in a sense of like, I like the Hulk Hogan because as a kid, he represented these things, and he was bright and awesome and charismatic. And then when you look at professional wrestling from the lens of from inside the ring, then you start looking at all these other different wrestlers, like your Eddie Guerreros or your Dean Malenkos, your Jushin Thunder Ligers, who I would, as a kid growing up in Canada, I never got the chance to see Jushin Thunder Liger. So, you know, once I started training, or even Tiger Mask, Dynamite Kid, that kind of veil of professional wrestling was opened up to me, and it made me even more of a fan.
Definitely. And like you brought so many kind of layers and attributes to your own style. Like how did the Crazy Steve style come about? Because you mentioned dark horror, you know, like we talk about Raven, you know, Mankind. They're all kind of, in a sense, I suppose, if you're a kid, you're like, you know, they're scary. So like, where did your own kind of, you know, product come from?
Yeah, I mean, it's all a convergence or amalgamation of all of that, right? So it's from, you know, from many different aspects, be it horror movies or music or comic books, or, you know, whatever I was, you know, just art in general. Like, it's all a bunch of that in its small little ways, and wrestling as well, right? So everything, even if it doesn't look like it from the outside, I put thought into like everything I wear, to how I do my makeup, to like, you know, everything like that. There's all sorts of thought that's put into it, because I'm just constantly thinking about wrestling on a loop anyway, and so all of that just kind of comes out. You know, how it gets mixed up, I couldn't tell you how the soup is made, but that I can tell you parts of the ingredients.
No, absolutely lovely. As you say, like when you look at a roster and you see, you know what I mean, the roster itself, you always stand out. You know what I mean? It's. I always remember the stuff with Rosemary, and like we've had her on in the past. Just very unique, very different, and that's what we like. You know, because we're so used to. I suppose you have your big, like, you know, when you take a wrestling in the 90s, you have all the big guys, all the big muscular guys and stuff. Now you're muscular, but it's just it's different to have that dark kind of aspect, and I think it's a very good thing. And I think we should see more of that. There should be more of
Yeah,
that
well,
there.
I mean, it's just something that I found myself attracted to, and you're right. Like, I'm not 6'6". I'm never going to be 275 pounds. It's just not in my DNA, as much as I would love to be. And so it's kind of like that classic story of Mick Foley telling Shawn Michaels, like, the Dude Love character is kind of based off of you. I always wanted to be the ladies' man, but I could never be the ladies' man based off of his physical attributes. And that's kind of Crazy Steve in a sense as well, because I mean, you know, I would love to be as athletic as, say, a Mike Bailey or a Ricochet or something like that, but I'm just not. Or I would love to be as jacked up as an EC3, but I'm not. So I have to think out. It forces you to think outside the box, but this is what, like, this would be the best version of me, I suppose. Like, these are the things I'm attracted to anyway.
Yeah.
So you just find ways. That's the beauty of professional wrestling, is it allows you to be creative, you know? So you just find ways to do exactly what you said, and that's to stand out. I'm never going to be as athletic as a Mike Bailey, so I will do something different to achieve the same goal in standing out. Just go about it in a different way.
Yeah, no, I love it. As you say, I'm all for it, and it's something that I think we need to see more of. You know, it's great. As you said, the artistic type. You know, you have it's something about it that I've always loved. Like, we have to mention, obviously, look, there's so much happening in Impact right now. It's a great time to be an Impact fan. Tell us, why should people subscribe to Impact Plus? Look, thousands of hours of matches, all the history over the years. Why should people get on that and subscribe?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, if you're a fan of Impact Wrestling, or a fan of professional wrestling in general, we make it very easy for you to find our product, right? There's a lot of times where I get people who say, you know, and to be fair, from the fan perspective, Impact has changed television stations quite a bit, right? From Spike to Pop to Destination America to Access TV. So it's definitely jumped around. But I think, and in saying that, I've gotten a lot of people who said, you know, I watched you when you guys were on Spike TV. I don't get the channel anymore. I don't know when to find you guys. And To a point, I can understand that for sure. I think in today's 2022, I don't know if that excuse holds as much water as it did, because again, you can find us on Impact Plus on our app or Impact Insiders on YouTube, and you get all of our content. And not only that, but you get exclusive content that you wouldn't get anywhere else. So if you're somebody who is either just getting into Impact Wrestling or you've been with us from the start, I apologize ahead of time for this pun, but you would be crazy not to do it, because I mean, it's right there. It's so easy. It's very accessible. It's easy to use. So I don't know why you wouldn't do it.
No, I love it. As you say, iconic moments in the past, iconic moments to the future. We look forward to it. Now, we have to speak of gold, Crazy Steve. You're a former tag team champion with the Great Abbas. Tell us what's in your sight. I'd always said, you know what I mean, an X Division championship look good around your waist. A world championship look good around your waist. So, like, what can we expect? Like, there's many big things to come. In due course, and look, we obviously have a big pay-per-view Overdrive, which is in due course. That'll be November. But look, what's in your sights? I'd love to see more gold around that waist, and surely it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I would like to think so too. The reality is, I don't know. I never know, and that's also kind of the exciting part of what I do. But yeah, I don't know. As far as gold, I think right now, if you're following the product, you're far better off to see Taurus in that picture than myself. That's not to say I won't be a part of that picture, but like with his momentum that he's gained recently, he's in line for an X Division title shot before I am. That's for sure. But I will be there, bushy-eyed and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But as far as like beyond that, I really never know. And if you've watched our product recently, I think that's safe to say too, because I mean, we're going through so many changes right now, as far as our roster is concerned, as far as the show and all of this stuff. And I know that there's so much more in store that I can't say, but so it's an exciting time to be a fan, not only on one side of the guardrail, but behind the guardrails as well too.
No, I love it. Speaking of Impact, you mentioned how big it is right now. Look, we're massive fans there in Europe. We're still praying that European tour gets announced next year. But who have you been impressed by? Obviously, look, you work with so many great guys and girls in the locker room. But tell us, what kind of people stand out for you at this moment in time? And Steve, I really do hope that you win that X Division championship or a world championship in due course. Don't take your sight off that, my man. That's something that the fans want. But
I'm not saying I'm not saying it's not in the future. I'm just saying, like it may be down the line, but it's not happening in the imminent future currently.
Okay.
Who has got my attention in the Impact locker room? That's a long question, and I will end up leaving people out, and I apologize in advance. I don't know how to answer that question without bringing up the world champion Josh Alexander. He's somebody who I've seen literally from day one on the independents to where he is right now. And I've got to see that transition of boy to man, if you want to put it in those terms. And I feel this isn't the right wordage. I will say I feel pride when I watch him perform in main event after main event. And that's not the right word, because I did nothing to get him to where he is. He did that all on his own. So I don't think pride is the right word, but there's it does my heart good to see someone like that achieve so much and work so hard and just grind away and never complain and put on banger after banger. Who else? This one might be, I go from Josh Alexander to my next one, which might sound weird, but Alicia Edwards.
Epic.
Is someone, yes. Somebody, and I say it because I've seen her again from the time I started in Impact, and when she was there, I've seen her really come into her own and find her what makes her special. And then we all saw it. Everybody else in the locker room lished for Lish and and what makes her unique and why she should be on TV and spotlighted in some form or fashion. But sometimes it's harder for the actual person to see that themselves and to get it and then utilize it to their advantage, right? So, but that has happened. Like that moment, that light bulb has gone off and it's clicked with Lish. And so to see her confidence when positioned with a task, be it match or backstage segment or something like that, has been a really, really awesome to see. It has been great to see. The addition of Laredo Kid and Black Taurus, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, you know, my tag partner, Black Taurus, and Laredo as well. These guys, for two human beings who there's a language barrier with them, and to see how well they have come into their own from not only like from a different television perspective, but also a different kind of wrestling perspective as far as the American style versus Lucha Libre, has been amazing. And they just, to see the things that they can do and just do on a regular basis is mind blowing. And sometimes it's to the point where sometimes you have to sit them down. You have to, hey guys, pull it back a little bit, okay? Pull it back. There's a time and a place for you guys to do the things that you're doing, but now isn't the time. And to see them kind of like learn those sort of things, see the light bulb, so to speak, go off in their head has been really, really fun to see as well. So those are just a few of the names, but like the roster's full of them. And every guest that you're going to have on your show is going to put over their own roster, and rightfully so, as they should. So, you know, I'd be remiss again if I didn't do the same. But I believe it. I honestly believe it. Impact is definitely a family of brothers and sisters who want to put on the best performance that we possibly can for our fans. We are not in control of, you know, where the company goes or where we are put on television or any of that. That's why we try and make it so easy for you as far as Impact Plus and Impact Insiders and such and so forth. But from a performance standpoint, from a locker room perspective, you know, there's nobody in there who is lacking in passion or the drive to like give you the best absolute performance that we possibly can. And that's something that I've seen from doesn't matter what management has come and gone throughout Impact in my tenure, but like that part has never changed. So it's really, really cool to see.
Great words from a wise man. Crazy Steve, it's an absolute pleasure as always. We pray and we hope that European tour is announced for next year, because look, us Irish and UK fans really need it. So hopefully we see Crazy Steve in our rings very soon in Europe.
We need it just as much as you do. Trust me. It's a give and take process, you know, so we will give you as much as we can and you guys give it right back. And so like, that's the beauty of what we do. I would absolutely love for Impact to announce a UK tour. So who knows, fingers crossed, toes crossed, tails crossed. Let's hope for it in the near future. Absolutely. But thank you so much for having me on. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Likewise, Steve. An absolute pleasure. We thank you for your time. Have a great week, and we'll see you on our TVs very soon, my man. Thank you.
Cheers.